Okay. Thank you for being here today. Merci de vous être rejoint à nous aujourd'hui.
Thank you for joining us here today.
As I think everyone knows, last Friday, Dr. Tam and Dr. New presented us all with some very disturbing figures around the future course of the coronavirus in Canada. And across our country, we are seeing stronger public health measures being implemented to prevent the spread of the virus. I think all of us right now are feeling worried and anxious and just tired. We're facing a virulent second wave of COVID-19, and winter is coming. But to all Canadians and to all Canadian businesses, today I'd like to say one thing. The federal government is here to support you, and together I know we're going to get through this.
Jeudi dernier, le projet de loi
Last Thursday,
C9 a
Bill
reçu la
C9
sanction
received
royale
royal
au Parlement,
assent,
ce qui met en place de
and this
nouvelles
introduces
mesures
new
ciblées pour
measures,
aider les entreprises
more targeted
canadiennes
measures
les
to
plus
help
durement touchées
Canadian
à
businesses
travers
that are the most
à traverser la pandémie.
hardest hit to
Dès
overcome the
aujourd'hui,
pandemic. As
les
of today,
entreprises peuvent faire une
businesses
demande
could
pour
make
la
a
subvention
request
pour le loyer
for
de
the rental subsidy
65% et pour
of
le
65%
complément de 25%
and for the
en
25%
cas de confinement.
supplement in
La
case of
subvention
lockdown.
salariale est aussi
The
prolongée
salary
jusqu'à
subsidy
l'été prochain.
is also being extended
Last
to
Thursday,
next summer.
Bill C9 received royal assent in Parliament, putting in place urgently needed new targeted support to help hard-hit Canadian businesses make it through this pandemic. Applications for the new 65% rent subsidy and an additional 25% for businesses facing specific lockdown restrictions open today. The wage subsidy is also extended until next summer. Rent support will be paid directly to tenants and is retroactive to September 27th. This is a victory for small business owners who are struggling right now to pay the rent and cover bills, and especially for those who are required to close their doors or significantly restrict their operations because of a public health order. All of us know now that there is light at the end of the tunnel with safe and effective vaccines on the way.
Ce sera tragique qu'une entreprise,
It would be
une
unfortunate
organisme de
for
bienfaisance,
a
un
business,
organisme à
a
but
charity,
non lucratif,
or
qui est
non-profit,
viable
which
et
is
a
viable
traversé la pandémie jusqu'à présent,
and which
commence
has
à faire
gone through the
défaut
pandemic
lorsque nous
so far,
entrevoyons la lumière au bout du tunnel avec l'arrivée du vaccin sûr et
start
efficace.
taking measures
Ces nouvelles
to see the
mesures
end of the
ciblées
tunnel with the upcoming
été mises en place
vaccine.
pour éviter
These new measures
que
have been
cela ne
introduced
se produise.
to prevent
Et j'en suis
such dire
reconnaissante
situations,
à
and I
tous
want to
ceux
thank
qui ont travaillé
all those
fort
who've worked
pour y
hard
arriver.
to get here.
It would be so tragic for any viable business, charity, or nonprofit to have made its way through most of the pandemic and then to falter just now as the end is in sight. This new support is here now to prevent that from happening, and I'm grateful to everyone involved for the speed with which we've done this. These support measures will be in place until next summer, and these are flexible measures that we can adjust going forward so that the support goes to those who need it the most. As we head into what we all know will be a difficult winter, this support is going to be crucial. Thank you. Merci.
Et je donne la parole maintenant à
Thank
Diane.
you.
Diane,
And I'll
s'il
give
vous
the
plaît.
floor to Diane.
Bonjour à tous.
Good afternoon,
Écoutez,
everyone.
je suis ici aujourd'hui, c'est
I'm
pour
here
vous parler
today
du lancement de la
To
subvention
talk
d'urgence
about
du Canada pour
the
le loyer.
Canada Emergency
L'Agence du
Rental
revenu du
Subsidy.
Canada
The
est
Canada
fière
Revenue
d'administrer
Agency
la
is proud
SUCL au nom
to
du
be
gouvernement du
managing
Canada.
this subsidy on
Je ne
behalf
peux
of Canada.
m'empêcher de souligner
Let me underscore the fact that the CEWS is one additional economic measure taken to respond to COVID-19, taken by the agency since the beginning of the pandemic. I would like to commend the great job that has been done by employees of the agency over the past few months. Let's come back to the topic before us. The rental subsidy is one of the many measures taken by the government to offer direct and targeted support to businesses, non-profits, and charities in Canada to help them navigate the second wave of the pandemic. We are aware that many organizations and businesses are undergoing extreme pressure because of the repercussions of COVID-19. The government wants to help them resolve the matter. The agency will be helping businesses stay open and position themselves and position communities for economic recovery. The agency has adopted a policy that is person-based. The agency will continue placing clients and people at the heart of its services. Owners and business owners in Canada may continue counting on the CRA, particularly in these difficult times. The agency has worked hard to be in the position to accept applications for this subsidy as of today, a few days after passage of the Act or bill. The agency is ready to provide customized support meeting the needs of the applicants. This morning, the agency has launched the web pages for the subsidy and a very useful calculator. These pages contain information and detailed instructions on how applications should be submitted, the structure of the period, and the types of expenses that could be sought. Let me add that during preparation of these tools, the agency, as usual, asked and received comments from various stakeholders, including the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the Canadian Council of Retailers, professional accountants, the Confederation of Restaurants and Retailers. This is evidence that the agency places users at the heart of its programs. It's thanks to this recognition that the stakeholders contributed to the preparation of this program. This week, we will start receiving the applications and start processing them from the 30th of November using its automatic system. This will be done during 3 to 5 business days, and those who are registered for direct deposit may expect to start receiving their subsidies from the 4th of December. The rental relief subsidy is in place to help businesses, charities, and nonprofits overcome the pandemic. And the agency is making the commitment to continue collaborating with these organizations and stakeholders continuously so that they receive the support they need during these difficult times. Thank you very much.
Et maintenant, je donne la parole à Mary.
Now I'll give the floor to Mary. Mary?
Merci, Diane. Merci,
Thank you, Diane.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Really are tough
Thank you,
for
Deputy Prime Minister.
businesses and for Canadians right now, as cases are still going up. Many local businesses aren't able to keep their doors open. People are worried about their jobs. And today I'm happy to talk about 3 things that mean good news for Canadian businesses. First, as my colleagues just said, today's opening of applications for the new Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy is another lifeline for small businesses and the hardworking Canadians that they employ. This support is vital, and this direct and easy-to-access rent and mortgage assistance will help those who need it most. At a time of incredible uncertainty and challenges, stability and continuity is something that Canadian businesses and workers need. On Saturday, I was happy to announce that we have concluded negotiations on a new Canada-UK trade continuity agreement. This is a win for Canadians. It's good news for businesses and workers on both sides of the Atlantic. Et notre travail ne s'arrête pas là.
Our work doesn't
We're
stop
looking
there.
forward to getting back to the negotiating table to work towards a comprehensive, ambitious free trade agreement to the benefit of all Canadians, with a focus on women's economic empowerment, the environment, small businesses, and digital trade. And third, I'm also here today with more good news for businesses and entrepreneurs, those who make immeasurable contributions to our communities every single day. The Prime Minister and I recently announced the new Black Entrepreneurship Program. For many, this has been a long time coming. As the first program of its kind in Canada, it aims to address systemic barriers and to ensure that Black entrepreneurs have the support that they need to grow and to thrive for years to come. When I was in Halifax last year, I met with the Black Business Initiative, a local organization that has been supporting Black-owned businesses across Nova Scotia for decades. Their CEO, Rustam Southwell, said this to me: "Nothing for us without us." So I took that to heart. Our government took that to heart. We have worked closely with Black-led business organizations and Black entrepreneurs and business owners from across the country. Their feedback was and continues to be instrumental in designing this new program. Today, I'm happy to announce that two key pillars of the Black Entrepreneurship Program, those applications are open now. The first is the National Ecosystem Fund. This fund is going to strengthen the capacity to support Black entrepreneurs and Black-owned businesses in communities all across the country. Applications open today for Black-led not-for-profit organizations that serve Black entrepreneurs. I encourage them to apply before December the 31st. The second pillar is the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. This hub will gather data on Black entrepreneurship in Canada and help identify critical gaps, barriers to success, as well as opportunities for growth and best practices. This hub will be jointly run by Black-led organizations and educational institutions like colleges and universities. We encourage them to come together to apply by January the 18th. For both of these pillars, you can find more information and apply through the government's website at the Black Entrepreneurship Program webpage. So today is an important step forward in building that foundation for meaningful change in the lives of Black entrepreneurs and Black-owned businesses for years to come. It builds on our government's commitment to address systemic barriers, including advancing Canada's anti-racism strategy, developing justice reforms, and enhancing mental health and community supports for young Black Canadians. À toutes les petites entreprises canadiennes,
To all Canadian small businesses, we will be with you at every stage.
Challenges and uncertainty that we face as a country, we will continue to fight hard for you every day. Merci beaucoup. Back to you, Deputy Prime Minister.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. And I think we're now ready to take your questions. Kat?
All right, so we'll start with questions in the room. One question, one follow-up. On va commencer avec les questions dans la salle, une question et une question en suivi. Merci.
Hi, Deputy Prime Minister. Tom Perry, CBC. I know you're putting these programs in place to support businesses that can stay open during the pandemic and also support them if they have to close down. Is there a simpler way of doing it? So you essentially just pay businesses to close down as a way of reducing the spread of the virus?
I think, Tom, that's what we're doing. The new, if you put together the rent support and the lockdown support, businesses subject to a lockdown restriction will be able to get up to 90% of their rent covered. That is a lot of support. And I think it is important to remember that there are a lot of businesses in the country that are not being required to fully shut down, but who are still facing real challenges, whether it's because we are traveling less, which is the right thing to do, or because we're all moving around less, also the right thing to do. And I think it's good that we have programs that are supporting those businesses too. But I think it's important for people to appreciate how much support will now be available for a business like a restaurant that is subject to lockdown restrictions. Once these measures, these measures are now, people can start applying today. As Dion said, people can start getting their money from December 4th This is retroactive to September 27th, and a business could get as much as 90% of rent covered and 65% of wages covered.
I'm just thinking, though, that if a business is not subject to a lockdown, but yet they still want to close down, I mean, would it not make more sense just to pay these businesses to shut down, so there's fewer people going in, less of a possibility of a spread? I don't know. Is that something that you think about?
Look, I think it's a good question because we have put these measures in place with an eye to making it easier for Canadians to all do the right thing. For public health officials, for mayors, for premiers, for business owners themselves. And that's why it is considerable support for businesses subject to a lockdown restriction. If you're not subject to a lockdown restriction, there is also really meaningful support there for you, right? 65% of rent, 65% of wages. And I think it's also important to remember, insofar as it is safe to do so, I think we want to keep as much of our economy going as possible. It's great. Manufacturers seem to have found a way to operate safely, and it's great that our manufacturing is open. Obviously, we need our grocery stores and our drugstores to still be operating. So I really believe that these measures are going to help us do the right thing when it comes to public health and help our businesses get through a difficult winter.
So a quick follow-up. The Conservatives are calling on the government to put a pause on auditing of businesses during the pandemic. Is that something you'd look at, or I guess why not do that?
I think when it comes to the operations of the CRA, I think Diane will want to reply. Diane, est-ce que tu veux répondre?
Diane, do you want to answer? Yes.
Écoutez, ce que je peux vous dire, c'est
What I
que
can tell you
au niveau
is
de
that
l'agence, on a des
at the
très hauts
agency,
standards,
we have very
on va
high
respecter le
standards.
statut d'indépendance
We
de
will
l'agence.
continue respecting the independence of the
Et soyez
agency.
assurés que
The
la
agency is
ministre du
there
Revenu
to
national
make
ne
sure
donnera pas aucune
that
instruction à l'agence
the National
en
Revenue
ce qui
Minister
concerne
not
les
give any
audits, les
instructions
vérifications qui sont en
concerning
cours.
the audits
Dans votre
underway.
respect de l'intégrité de l'agence
This
du
has to
Revenu
do
du
with
Canada.
respecting the integrity of the Canada Revenue
C'est
Agency.
possible de faire une pause sur les audits?
Is it possible to pause the audits?
Comme je viens de vous le mentionner,
As I've just stated,
l'Agence du Revenu du Canada
the
est
Canada
complètement
Revenue Agency
indépendante en ce qui
is
concerne
totally
les audits et il n'est
independent
pas
when it comes
question,
to
que
audits.
la ministre du Revenu national
The Minister of National
intervienne au
Revenue
niveau
cannot
des audits qui sont
intervene
effectués par
with
l'agence.
audits
On
being
demanderait
done by the
jamais,
agency.
à
We will
un
never
ministre d'intervenir
ask
dans des
a
enquêtes
minister
de
to
la GRC.
interfere
Il en va
in
exactement
RCMP
de même concernant
investigations.
les audits.
It's the
Il n'est
same
pas
thing for
question que la
audits.
ministre du Revenu national ou
The
que le
Minister of
gouvernement du
National
Canada
Revenue or the government of
interfère dans les
Canada
audits qui sont faits par
cannot
l'agence.
interfere in audits
I'll
undertaken
just
by the
remind everybody
agency.
that's one question, one follow-up. Thank you.
Glenn McGregor, CTV News. Deputy Prime Minister, we're expecting a fall fiscal update. Fall is almost over. Can you give us a little more detail on when this is going to come, how the timing is going to work with the possible First Minister's meeting, and whether or not this is actually going to be an economic update or a fiscal snapshot like your government delivered earlier?
We committed in the speech from the throne to offering a fall economic update, and we will be doing that, and more details will come soon.
Date?
Just a little bit of patience, Glenn.
Fall's almost over.
I know that.
Okay. Question on vaccines. We're hearing reports that the United States could start vaccinating people before Christmas. Same in the UK with their success they've had with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. What are you going to tell Canadians if they turn on the TV and see Americans and Brits getting vaccines and we're not delivering them yet, maybe possibly for months later?
So I think that's a really good question, Glenn. And I think, as I said in my remarks, I think a lot of us are very focused right now on the vaccines, and we should be, because that really is the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's been a lot of good news recently on the efficacy of some of the leading vaccine candidates. I think the good news for Canada and Canadians is that we have built up a really robust portfolio of orders and purchases of vaccines. We have orders for all of the leading vaccine candidates, and we have a significant number of doses ordered for each Canadian. I think the other thing that's important for Canadians to appreciate, and is a really good thing, is we have a universal public health care system. We are a country that knows how to deliver healthcare across the country to all Canadians and knows that health should be free and is free. And so we do know how to vaccinate. And I think that strong program and system that we have in place is going to serve us in very, very good stead. And I do just also want to point out that this is going to be a real Team Canada effort. It's going to be essential to have close collaboration between the federal government and the premiers of the provinces and territories. And I'm really confident that we will have that. Our public healthcare system, which I think Canadians are rightly proud of, is very effective at delivering free care to all Canadians. And I know that there will be a lot of focus by all levels of government on rolling out these vaccines safely and effectively.
Chris Reynolds, Canadian Press. In hotspots around the country, some folks are questioning just how fair it is that small businesses have to close their doors while big box stores generally get to stay open, and not only stay open, but often take some of the business that might have gone to those entrepreneurs on Main Street. I'm wondering, should governments be setting rules around what those big box stores, or just stores that are allowed to remain open, can sell so that not as much business is siphoned off from those smaller businesses?
That is a really good question, Chris, and it's something that I've heard a lot about from entrepreneurs around the country. As you know, decisions on lockdowns and public health orders are made by premiers, they're made by mayors, and they're made by public health officials at the local level. And that's how it should be, because our country is vast and there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all policy for Canada. But speaking to the concern at the heart of your question, what I will say is our government really appreciates the importance of small business, of local, often family-owned businesses, how important they are to our economy, huge source of employment, and how important they are to our communities, to our society. And that's why the measures that businesses can start applying for today, together with the CEBA top-up, an extra $20,000, $10,000 of which will be forgivable, those are really about providing the support to small businesses that they need. And I'll say one more thing, which is all of us can support small businesses in our community too. We can support local small businesses by choosing to patronize the ones next door, maybe by ordering takeout from those restaurants that have had to close their indoor dining.
I'm also wondering what data you've seen that really points toward the idea that small businesses are hotbeds of transmission. If we're forcing all these folks to close their enterprises, I would think that there'd be some hard data at the bottom of that. For example, Ontario has only spotted or cited 119 businesses that are or 119 cases of COVID that can be traced back to retail settings. I'm wondering what data you have that makes you question the idea that retail stores should be open.
So, as you know very well, Chris, the decisions about restrictions are made locally and very much on the advice of our public health officials across the country. I have a lot of confidence in our public health officials. I know how hard it is to be a business, particularly a business that got through a difficult summer a difficult spring was able to reopen in the summer, and in many parts of the country is today facing additional restrictions. I really get how heartbreaking that is. What we know about COVID is that this is a social virus. It's a virus that thrives when people are together. It's a virus that thrives when each one of us has more social interactions. And so the way to stop the virus while we wait for the vaccines is to limit our social interactions. We know that that works. And unfortunately, there are some commercial activities that require more social interaction than others. It's not because some businesses are more worthy or less worthy. I think it's not really about whether people are doing the right thing or not. I think businesses across the country have been working so hard to make their businesses safe for themselves, their employees, and their customers. It's just the nature of the virus. And we know the surefire way to stop it is to limit our social interactions. And I think that's what we all really need to do. We saw the frankly horrifying projections from Dr. Tam and Dr. New on Friday. We all need to pull back. We need to do that for ourselves, for our families, for our neighbors. And I have a huge amount of respect for the premiers, the mayors, the public health officers across the country who have taken the agonizing decision to restrict business activity to help us all limit our social interactions. It is absolutely the right thing to do. They have the full support of the federal government, and that's why I'm so pleased that we are able today to open up applications for this economic support for businesses to get them through.
All right, we'll now turn to questions on the phone. Operator?
Thank you. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. Veuillez s'il vous plaît appuyer sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. The first question is, la prochaine question est de Raymond Fillon de TVA. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Question from Raymond Fillon, TVA. Thank you. I have a question for the Deputy Prime Minister, Madame Freeland. I want to follow up on the question asked by my colleague about vaccines. How can you explain the fact that vaccinations will start in Canada later compared to the United States, Germany, and the UK? You talked about 2021 for the start of vaccinations, whereas these other countries say that they could start vaccinations in mid-December. Why the delay in Canada? Answer. Thank you for the question.
Concernant la vaccination,
Concerning vaccinations,
je veux commencer avec la chose que je pense est la plus importante.
let me start with what I believe is the most important thing.
Notre gouvernement, le fédéral, a des contrats.
Our federal government has contracts for purchasing the most successful candidate vaccines. Canada has a group of vaccines that includes all the vaccines that have produced positive results and includes other candidate vaccines, which we believe would be successful. That is a good thing. Our country is very well positioned when it comes to vaccines. We will have the necessary vaccines. Now, concerning the vaccination program specifically and what we will do, right now, we are working with the provinces and territories to organize a system for the distribution of vaccines and the vaccination of Canadians throughout the country. And we are convinced that we will succeed in doing that. Let me also raise something else.
La vaccinisation sera un processus.
Vaccination will be a process.
On ne peut pas et on ne veut pas vacciner
we cannot and we do not vaccinate everyone in the country on the same day.
C'est une très, très bonne nouvelle
So
qu'on a acheté les vaccins.
it's good news that
C'est une
we've
bonne
purchased the
nouvelle qu'il y a
vaccines.
maintenant 3
It's
vaccins
good
qui ont
news
des
that
bons
now we have
résultats.
3 vaccines
Mais
that
on doit
have
aussi
good
comprendre
results.
que ça
But we
prendra
also
un
need
peu
to
de temps
understand
pour
that it
vacciner tout
takes
le pays,
a while for
mais on va
everyone
le
in the
faire.
country to
Je
be
suis très
vaccinated.
confiante de ça.
But we will do it, and I'm convinced of that.
De voir les premières
Question.
vaccinations au Canada être réalisées
To
avant
see
la
the
fin
first
de l'année
vaccinations
en cours
carried
d'année
out
2020.
by the
On doit
end
oublier
of
ça?
2020.
C'est possible.
Is that something we should forget
Je ne vais
totally?
pas
Is that impossible?
aujourd'hui
Answer.
préciser les
Today,
détails
I cannot give
concernant
details
la
about the
vaccination.
vaccination program.
Je peux, si vous voulez,
If you will,
vous rappeler quels sont les vaccins
let me
qu'on a
remind
achetés.
you of the
C'est
vaccines we have
utile,
purchased,
mais concernant
if that
le
is useful.
programme de
But
vaccination,
concerning the
comment on va le
vaccination
faire,
program, how
on
it's
est
going
en
to be
train
carried out,
maintenant de
right now,
confirmer,
we
les
are
détails
confirming
avec les
details with the provinces and territories.
Assez compliqué.
It's a very complicated process, as you know, and we have to work in close collaboration with the provinces and territories, and we are doing that, and we shall do that.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Catherine Lévesque de la Presse canadienne. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Catherine Lévesque, Presse canadienne. Good afternoon. My first question is for Madame Leboutier. I want to know if there's a way for you to make sure that the rental subsidy be retroactive. Have you asked your colleagues about that? That question was for Madame Leboutier. What I can tell you is that the times when the businesses will be able to ask for the emergency rent subsidy will start from the 27th of September to the 24th of October for the first period. What is important for us as we support businesses is to make sure that they receive payments quickly. So at the Canada Revenue Agency, the automatic verification system will be used to process files, and this would help compare the information of the applicants with information already at the agency. But as my colleague said, what is important for us is to make sure that we support small businesses and owners as they help their employees. Question. When I talked about it being retroactive, it's because some businesses feel that it was unfair that they were not eligible for it because they were affected during the first wave. Would it be possible to change things so that those businesses who've been waiting for months because they were not able to benefit from the first subsidy because their proprietors could not help them? The first one was set up together with Development Canada and various departments. But as I said before, assistance will be provided. The first period starts from the 27th of September and goes on till June 2021 when it comes to support to businesses.
The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Hélène Buzetti de Le Devoir. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, ma question est pour Madame
Question.
Freeland.
My question is for Madame Freeland. As the holiday season approaches, people feel that that period is going to be long, and they are thinking of going to the south to spend the holidays, which are going to be longer. What advice will the Canadian government give people thinking of going to the south to spend the holidays? Answer. The advice is very clear.
Lire sur le site web
It's there on the
des
website
Affaires mondiales du
of
Canada.
Global Affairs Canada.
Et c'est qu'on conseille
And
les Canadiens
what Canadians
d'éviter
are
tous les
being
voyages
advised to do
qui
is
ne
to
sont pas
avoid
essentiels.
all non-essential travel.
On a réaffirmé cet conseil
That
la
advice
semaine
was
passée.
reasserted last
Vraiment,
week.
ce n'est pas le moment de faire les voyages
This
qui
is
ne
not
sont
the
pas
time
essentiels.
for non-essential
Ce
travel.
n'est pas une bonne idée
It's
pour
not a good
les gens qui
idea
voyagent.
for
Et ce n'est
people
pas une
to
bonne
travel.
idée pour le retour. Et je
And
veux
it's
aussi
not a good
souligner
idea for when they
pour
return to the
tous,
country.
qui
Let me also
sont en
add
train
that
d'organiser
for
des
all
voyages à
those
l'étranger maintenant,
planning trips
évidemment, les
abroad
Canadiens ont
now,
toujours le
of
droit,
course,
de
Canadians
partir de
always
notre
have the
pays.
right to travel
C'est
to
le
other
droit de
countries.
chaque citoyen,
It's
de
the
chaque
right
personne
of
qui est
each
ici.
and everyone who is here.
On ne l'empêchera.
We will not stop
Mais
them.
c'est important aussi de
But
se
it's also
rappeler
important
que les mesures de
to
quarantaine
remember
sont
that
toujours en place.
quarantine measures are still in
Et,
place.
pour les gens qui voyagent à
For people
l'étranger,
traveling abroad,
quand ils décideront de
when
revenir
they will
au
decide
Canada,
to come back to
par
Canada,
exemple, pour
for
obtenir les
example,
vaccins duquel
to
on a discuté
obtain
beaucoup
the vaccines
aujourd'hui,
we talked
ce sera
about a lot today,
nécessaire,
it will be necessary
de faire une quarantaine de 2
to
semaines
quarantine
avant
for
de
2
partir
weeks
de la maison.
before leaving the house.
Vous avez dit
Question.
que ce n'est pas une bonne idée pour
You
ceux qui
said
voyagent
it's
et
not a
pour
good
le
idea for
retour,
those
pour les gens
traveling
sur
and
place,
for
c'est
returning.
quoi le problème
Could
au
you be
retour?
clear what the problem will be when they return?
J'ai
Answer.
juste dit que
It's
les
just what I
mesures de
said.
quarantaine sont toujours
Quarantine
en place.
measures are still in place.
Alors, si les gens choisissent
So if
de
people
voyager,
decide to
ce sera
travel,
nécessaire de faire
it
une
will be
quarantaine
necessary to
après
quarantine
le retour au Canada.
upon their return to
So
Canada.
on the question of people choosing to travel outside the country, the advice from Global Affairs is very clear. It's on the website. Everyone can take a look. And it was just updated and reaffirmed last week. And that is there is clear advice to all Canadians not to undertake any non-essential travel. I would also remind people who do choose to travel outside the country that our quarantine measures are still in place, and anyone who chooses to travel and then wishes to come back home, as we do when we make trips, upon returning to Canada, the current rules are that there is a mandatory 14-day quarantine period. And that will be very strictly enforced.
We'll take one more question from the phone, and that'll be the last question for today's press conference.
Thank you. The next question is from, la prochaine question est de Christopher Nardi from National Post. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Rebonjour, Madame de Boutier.
Question. Good day, Madame Leboutier. I would like to come back to what you said before concerning the Conservative Party request that audits be suspended. Do you believe that you could have the authority? Because this is something that was adopted by the House. Is it even something that you could do? Answer. As I stated, the CRA is totally independent when it comes to audits and verifications. And it's very important to respect the work of the agency. I will not do anything contrary to what the Conservatives did when they were in government to intervene in the work of environmental organizations or the work of people against their policies. It's out of question that this government does the same thing as Conservatives. We need to respect the work done by the agency, something that they're doing very well, by the way. Question. Follow-up question. Do you have any results of this project? Do we know if they have found any problems? And if that is the case, could we expect a broader audit? Answer.
sur lequel vous me posez des questions.
The program you're asking me questions about
Ça a vraiment été là, d'une ampleur qui a été très limitée. Puis pour nous,
seems to have been very limited in scope.
Qui a versé, là, quand on regarde au niveau
When you look at the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, $45 billion was paid to more than 1.5 million beneficiaries. As I said, the audits were done with limited scope, but this also enables the agency to adjust its audit approaches, and all this is done to continue supporting businesses so that we improve practices.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes today's press conference.
No, I wasn't saying that. And the fault could well be in my French, Glenn, and not in your understanding. No, I was just saying that I was just making the point about the mandatory quarantine measures still being in place. And so people who leave Canada generally do so with the intention of returning. And, you know, for example, people might want to return to get vaccinated. And when people do come back to the country, they need to really bear in mind that they will be subject to that mandatory 14-day quarantine, which, you know, it can be pretty onerous for people. Okay. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.